Yo, what's good, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prodigy Podcast. My name is Tyler Anderson. I'm your host, and we did it, guys. We are at episode 20, not 200. I almost said 200. Episode 20. We're not at 200 yet, but hopefully someday. We got to get through each week. We're taking this 1 week at a time because every week of this fantasy football season has been crazy. It's been psychotic. In this episode, we're going to break down week 4 of the 2024 fantasy football season. I broke down the Thursday night game on my last episode, starts of the week. So if you, for whatever reason, want to go over the Giants and Cowboys game where the Cowboys won 20-15, go ahead and check that out. And while you're at it, just go ahead and subscribe and follow wherever you are enjoying the podcast so you can become a fantasy football prodigy yourself. Got to stay tuned for all the new episodes. But yeah, in this episode, we're going to go through each game and talk about the fantasy goodness in all the games. These episodes have been kind of long, so I'm going to try to kind of go a little bit quicker in this episode, just so, you know, it's not as long as the others. We'll see how fast I end up going by the end of the game, but let's jump right into the noon games. This is October 1st, 2024 that I am recording this, okay? Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. I don't know if I'm going to get this posted in time today or if it's going to come out on Wednesday the 2nd, but just so you have a timestamp of when this is coming out, just in case news breaks and things change. We're going to start with the Saints traveling to the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons at home get the win 26-24. Falcons are now 2-2. The Saints are also 2-2 after a hot start. Lost, I think it's 2 in a row that they lost. So we'll start with the winner. Kirk Cousins, 21 of 35, 238 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick. Not looking like an every week starter, obviously, more of a streaming candidate, and you know, this matchup was kind of gross. In the running game, Bijan Robinson did not have a very good game. Only 7 for 28 on the ground. Meanwhile, Tyler Algier, who, you know, gets work there as well in that backfield, he saw 8 for 60 on the ground. Bijan did see 4 targets, caught all 4 of them for 46 yards. So he's still an every week start. Don't overreact to one game that wasn't, you know, tremendous. Every player is going to have their down games. This just wasn't a great Bijan game. And then Tyler Algier, he's not going to have too much value most weeks. But he's a good handcuff. He also had 2 for 20 through the air. Bijan Robinson he was limited on Tuesday with a hamstring injury that he suffered on Sunday. So that is just something to monitor. Hopefully he plays and is not limited, but hamstring injuries are never good. And let me take a look at the snap percentages here really quick. I know I said I wanted to go through this quickly, but I think this is important. So Bijan played 64% of the snaps. I was about to read Tyler Algier's number, but then the website refreshed. So Bijan 64, Tyler Algier 38. So he was on the field for most of the game. I'm not sure if he left early or what happened with that. I have the NFL Red Zone, but I don't know if he actually left the game. I'm not reading anything about him reading early or leaving the game early. So I think it was just a situation where Tyler Algier just got a few more touches, but it also said he injured it on Sunday. So that could have been why. Moving on, though, spent way too much time on that. Drake London, 6 for 64. I wasn't super excited about this matchup, but I benched him in one league, played him in another. That's all right. But he did see 12 targets, and that's what you like. So the offense started pretty gross in Atlanta, but you love the 12 targets. I think better days are ahead for Drake London. And then Darnell Mooney, nice little draft day value at wide receiver. 6 targets, 3 for 56. And then a deep league guy who's been kind of relevant, Ray McLeod, 7 targets, 6 for 52. And maybe the biggest storyline from this game, Kyle Pitts, 3 targets, no catches, no yards. That is looking like a not great draft pick. Obviously, I think it could get better, but how much better? I don't know. I think it'll get better than 0 for 0. But even some of the production he's had has been a little fluky where it's been like a broken play or something. So hopefully they can get back on track. I once traded George Kittle and a 1st round pick for Kyle Pitts back in the early days of the hype, and that has definitely not worked out. On the other side, Derek Carr, his crash back down to earth continues. Hopefully you sold high. 28 of 36, 239 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick. So no passing touchdowns between these two quarterbacks. Alvin Kamara, one of my guy. Well, he was my one and only running back my guy. I had one my guy for each position where I wanted to leave every draft with those guys. Alvin Kamara was my guy, and he has been amazing for fantasy, dude. He was the running back 6 on the week with 21.4 points in half PPR, which is the format that we're going to go off of here. 19 for 77 and 1 touchdown on the ground. Also added 7 for 42 through the air on 9 targets, which is one of the reasons why I loved Alvin Kamara. So he's in each and every week, regardless of matchup play, because even if they're getting blown out or it's a tough run defense, he's going to catch passes. Chris Olave, another good week. Great to see that after a good performance last week against the Eagles. 8 for 87 on 10 targets. And then Shaheed, a week after getting goosed, big bounce back game. Saw 11 targets. You love that. 8 for 83 through the air. That is amazing. And then Taysom Hill in this game, I should say, also mention 6 for 24 on the ground and 2 touchdowns. So Alvin Kamara managers are a little annoyed, and obviously I have a lot of him, so I'm a little annoyed at that. Taysom Hill did leave early though with, I think it was a chest injury, which I believe is the same body part area, that he was dealing with before. So he might miss time. But when, I said in the offseason, I believe on this podcast, that he's going to have his games where he scores a couple touchdowns, and this was one of them when no one was playing him. And then other than that, at tight end, Juwan Johnson and Moreau, I'm just avoiding them. Moving on to the next game, we got the Rams and the Bears. Bears at home get the win over the Rams 24-18. The Bears are 2-2. The Rams are 1-3. I think the Rams are a much better team than their record indicates, but they've just had so many injuries. Their defense is just not playing well. Caleb Williams, 17 for 23, 157 and 1 through the air, added 5 for 12 on the ground. If you are still holding on to Caleb Williams at this point, I think you can drop him, especially like in a 2 quarterback league. Okay, hold on to Caleb Williams, but in a single quarterback league, drop him. There's a team in one of my leagues that has 3 quarterbacks and they're holding on to Caleb Williams, and they're also winless. It's like, dude, you need skill position players because your team is terrible. You don't need a 3rd string quarterback that you're never going to play. Like, he could blow up at some point. I do acknowledge that. It's not like dropping Kirk Cousins where it's like, okay, he's probably not going to turn into an MVP candidate. But, if you need the roster space, Caleb Williams is not someone that I'm, sacrificing roster depth elsewhere for at this point. The week that I feel like people finally gave up on DeAndre Swift, he had himself a really good game for fantasy. 16 for 93 and a touchdown on the ground. He also saw 7 targets, caught them all for 72 yards. 26 points in half PPR was the running back 3. Roshan Johnson, who we thought would be more involved, he saw 7 for 26 on the ground, also ran in a touchdown, but DeAndre Swift was the guy. Cole Kmet, after that big performance, with Keenan Allen coming back from injury, I did expect, I even talked about in my starts of the week video, I was going to make Cole Kmet a start of the week, but with Keenan Allen coming back, I just couldn't do it. I did still have to start him in one league because I drafted a lot of Njoku, who's been out. And he was 3 for 34 on 3 targets. So honestly, I was pretty happy with that, with how tight end has been this year. DJ Moore, 6 targets, 3 for 22, but luckily caught a touchdown. I heard that there was like another potential touchdown in there as well. But listen, this is kind of my stance on DJ Moore. I think Caleb Williams will get better. I think the offense will improve as Caleb Williams improves. And then long-term dynasty-wise, I think this year is going to be a little rough for DJ Moore and for redraft as well, I guess, because that's all we care about is this year. I don't think this year is going to be great for DJ Moore just because Keenan Allen is there. He's going to soak up targets. And even when he's not there, they drafted Rome Odunze to be very early in the first round to be an impact player. So DJ Moore is never going to be the true alpha number 1. Like, Rome Odunze is at least going to be like a solid 2 because as long as he turns out to be a good player. And with Keenan Allen there, it's just so crowded with a rookie quarterback where rookie quarterbacks already struggle to provide fantasy production for 1 receiver, let alone 3. I just think, like, if you're on my dynasty team, I made a lot of trades. I traded away a lot of youth to get a lot of really good veteran players that are going to help take me over the top. One of them being Tyreek Hill, who lost his quarterback. And I do have Christian McCaffrey, who is missing time. So, you know what? Maybe I should be rebuilding, but I digress. If you can trade away DJ Moore in Dynasty and get more of like a win now type of player, I'm not giving away DJ Moore because he's still, what, 27 years old, right? I'm not giving him away, but I just think this year is going to be rough. And if you can get fair value for DJ Moore, like I'm trying to do a package right now where there's a rebuilding team. I'm trading away DJ Moore for and a little bit extra for James Cook, whereas James Cook is still technically younger, but I think, you know, running backs age out sooner. But I digress. I just think this year is going to be a little shaky for DJ Moore, but long term, you know, once Keenan Allen is gone, and if and when Caleb Williams kind of comes into his own and finds his groove and gets that NFL experience, I think DJ Moore will return to kind of that, you know, wide receiver 2 range with that week winning upside that he has flashed. Keenan Allen came back from injury. He was 3 for 19 on 3 targets. So not the best return, but like I said, it's going to be a crowded receiving room. And let me pull up the snap share here. Just to get a little vibe check on how much they all played. So Keenan Allen played 68% of snaps. So he was out there a fair amount. Probably would have played more if he wasn't coming back from injury. Like, for example, DJ Moore was 92 and Rome Odunze was 78. So Keenan Allen was third of those receivers, but that'll probably go up. And then on the other side, there's not a lot to talk about here. Matt Stafford, you're not starting with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp out. He was 20 for 29, 224, no touchdowns, 1 pick. Oh, also, I should have said Rome Odunze was 1 for 10 on 3 targets. But back to Stafford. Yeah, like I traded for him in Dynasty as a win now team. Like I traded like pocket change for him from a rebuilding team. But I think I'm starting Andy Dalton in a tough matchup against the Bears this week over Matthew Stafford and probably over Trevor Lawrence, who I also have, who's been really bad. And I have Jalen Hurts on bye. But yeah, Kyron Williams, yet another week winning performance. All that worry in the offseason about Blake Corum stealing touches. Blake Corum didn't get a touch in this game. Rodney Rivers appears to be the backup. He was 6 for 26, Rodney Rivers was. And then Kyron Williams was 19 for 94 and a touchdown on the ground. 4 for 10 through the air on 4 targets. Running back 12 on the week with 18.4 points. And then in the receiver room, it's still gross. Tutu Atwell led the way, 4 for 82 on 6 targets. Jordan Whittington, a name to monitor, 6 for 62 on 8 targets. The rookie, he had a really good camp. There was a lot of buzz with Jordan Whittington. It hasn't really come together yet, even with this opportunity presenting itself with the injuries, but he did see 8 targets, which led the team. So if Jordan Whittington is out there, I think that is a really solid pickup. Demarcus Robinson, only 3 targets, 2 for 37. He was kind of the guy that we were the most confident in, I feel like, but at this point, I'm not super confident in any of these guys, so I would probably take the upside shot on Jordan Whittington. And he might even be the safest play a week after leading the team in targets. It could go back to 2-2. It could go to Robinson, but it's a gross situation. And then Tyler Johnson, only 1 target, did not catch it. So definitely a gross situation. Robinson was on the field for 85% of the snaps. Whittington on the field for 97% of snaps. The most of any wide receiver. Tutu Atwell was second with 90%. Demarcus Robinson was 85%, like I said, and Tyler Johnson was all the way down at 16%. So he seems like a non-factor. So, yeah. And then Colby Parkinson saw 7 targets, only turned into 4 for 33. So I would take the shot on a Whittington if you have the roster space or if you're in a dynasty league. We're going to move on to the next game, my favorite game of the week. The Minnesota Vikings. Let's go, baby. Skull on the road in Green Bay. Get the win, 31-29. My Vikings are 4-0. Packers are 2-2. This game was out of hand, and then the Packers saw a ton of garbage time production, and they actually made it a game where it did come down to the onside kick. And if you know anything about being a Vikings fan, like I was holding my breath for that onside kick, because if they would have got it, I'm almost guaranteed the Packers would have threw one pass up the seam, gotten in field goal range, and won the game. But I was also watching the game with a ton of Packers fans, so it was set up for heartbreak. But this Vikings team has been holding off a lot. Like, you know, they seem like they're kind of locked in. They're locked in, even though it did get a little messy. They have some things to clean up. But we're going to start by breaking down the Vikings' performance. So Sam Darnold, I think at this point you have to at least consider him as a stream-worthy option. I was deciding between Darnold, Fields, and Geno Smith in one of my leagues. I did go with Geno. He was the second best in fantasy totals. Darnold was the third best, and Fields was the best, who we'll talk about later. But Darnold still had a really good game. He was the quarterback 9 on the week. Apparently, I had 3 top 9 quarterbacks on my roster. So I ended up cutting Darnold, even though I did just pick him up for 11 fab. I was going to cut Mike Gesicki, but I had to play him because David Njoku is still out, even though Gesicki did finish with -9 yards. So I literally would have been better with nobody. But Darnold looked awesome to start the game. 20 for 28, 275 yards and 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. There were a couple plays where you're like, Darnold, this is classic Sam Darnold. Why are you doing that? Got away with some passes, and the game did get close. But it was just enough. And then Aaron Jones in a revenge game. I'm surprised he didn't get in the end zone and give us a Lambeau leap. But even without a touchdown, he was a running back 16 on the week, 15.9 points. He had 22 carries, which you love, 93 yards, no touchdowns. He also saw 5 targets, turned into 4 for 46 through the air. And then backup running back Ty Chandler was only 3 for 5 on the ground. Caught his 1 target for 8 yards. So he's the clear lead back there. I will say, though, Aaron Jones has long dealt with injuries. He's one of those guys that usually misses a few games every year, kind of like James Conner. So right now, it's not really a committee. Aaron Jones is the lead running back there. But if Aaron Jones were to miss time, I think Ty Chandler, who only played 12% of snaps, only 8 snaps, would hop in there and fill the role nicely and be a good running back 2 type of play. Aaron Jones, though, he played 82% of the snaps, 56 total snaps. So he is clearly the guy there. For what it's worth, Sam Darnold also added 15 rushing yards, 7 for 15. And then in the receiver game, Justin Jefferson continues to get it done. 6 for 85 and a touchdown on 8 targets. The worry was that he wouldn't be able to catch touchdowns with Sam Darnold, but Darnold has been playing really well. And I believe Jefferson has a touchdown in every single game, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pulling up his game log right now. He's 1 touchdown in every single game. He hasn't finished worse than the wide receiver 15 on any week. 15, 7, 14, 11. Jordan Addison, in his first game back from injury, saw 4 targets, turned into 3 for 72 through the air and a touchdown. He also had 1 carry for 7 yards and a touchdown. So 2 touchdowns on the day, wide receiver 4 on the week, 21.4 points in half PPR. 2 of the 3 people ahead of him were Green Bay Packers. Jalen Naylor took a reduced role here with Addison back. 2 targets, 1 for 31. So he's kind of irrelevant unless, Addison goes down again. And yeah, nothing in the tight end game really to speak of. Jordan Love, first game back from injury, started pretty bad. I felt pretty good about starting Dak Prescott over him for a while. I had Dak in over Jordan Love and Justin Fields in one of my 2 quarterback leagues. But that was not the right call. Dak was like 16-ish points, and Jordan Love had a great game for fantasy just because they were losing by so much. They just kept airing it out, and the Vikings were giving up some big plays. He finished as the quarterback 2 on the week, behind only Justin Fields, who we'll talk about later. So both of those guys are on my bench in one of my leagues. Super cool. 30, but I still won, so it's fine. 32 of 54. Wait, is that true? Or wait, hold on. Now I have to know. Sorry, I know that you don't care, but I have to check. I think I actually had Fields in my lineup. I did have Fields. I played Fields and Dak. So Love was on the bench and Jared Goff was on the bench. So everyone did good except for Dak, who was in my lineup. But sorry, I got sidetracked there. My bad. Jordan Love, 32 of 54, 389 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Like I said, ugly game at first, but finished as a quarterback 2 with over 30 points. Added 1 carry for 6 yards. Josh Jacobs, only 9 for 51. Emmanuel Wilson, the other running back there, 8 for 27. It's a bit of a committee going on there right now. Wilson is definitely the number 2 there. Emmanuel Wilson saw 39% of the snaps and Jacobs saw 61, but it is a committee. Wilson is, a deep play guy that you should be alert for. And, obviously Marshawn Lloyd is out right now, the rookie who they drafted. But if Jacobs were to go down and it was Wilson and Lloyd, I think Wilson would probably be the lead back at this point just because he's been there and been healthy and been playing well. And then in the receiving game, like I said a little bit ago, the number 2 and number 3 receivers on the week were Green Bay Packers. I had Jaden Reed in my lineup in both leagues. I had him, so thank goodness I did not make the same mistake I made in week 1, where he was on my bench in all my leagues. Like, all 2 of them that I had him. Jaden Reed, 8 targets, 7 for 139 and 1. Hopefully you were able to buy him on the cheap during that Malik Willis period, because with Jordan Love, Jaden Reed is unbelievable. He looks like Deebo Samuel light out there. Maybe even Deebo Samuel Pro at this point, because I did play him over Deebo Samuel and it worked out. 7 for 139 on 8 targets. And then Dontavian Wicks, 13 targets, had some drops, but it still turned into 5 for 78 and 2 touchdowns. So Reed was a wide receiver 2 with 23.6 points, and Dontavian Wicks was the wide receiver 3 on the week with 22.3. So your wide receivers 2, 3, and 4 were all from this game, and then Jefferson was wide receiver 11. A lot of offense in this game. Romeo Doubs saw 8 targets, only turned into 4 for 39, but Christian Watson left this game with an injury, and it's looking like there's a good chance that he could miss some time. So that means that Dontavian Wicks, it says he's going to miss at least a week. They expect him to be out this week. It doesn't seem long term. So if you need a start like this week or maybe next week, Wicks is a very good pickup. And Watson is a guy who has struggled with injuries in the past. So Wicks in that offense with the points that this team can put up, if for whatever reason he finds himself in a role where he's getting targets, like 13 in this game, he's going to be really, really great those weeks. And then Tucker Kraft at tight end appears to be the tight end that you want here over Luke Musgrave. Tucker Kraft was 6 for 53 and a touchdown on 9 targets, played 86% of the snaps, whereas Luke Musgrave was only 3 for 13 on 3 targets and played 33% of the snaps. I think I forgot to say this, but Jacobs also added 4 for 27 through the air. So yeah, that lot of fantasy goodness in that game. We're going to move on to the next game. Before we do that, please make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you are enjoying the podcast, just so you can stay tuned for more episodes and become a fantasy football prodigy. Indianapolis Colts hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. Colts get the win 27-24. Colts are 2-2. The Steelers are 3-1. Anthony Richardson got hurt early in this game. He was only 3 for 4. 71 yards. If you're only going to complete 3 passes, 71 yards is not bad. He also added 3 for 24 on the ground before leaving with a hip injury. Joe Flacco came in, and if Richardson misses time, Joe Flacco should be picked up in leagues where you're streaming the quarterback position, or in for sure Superflex leagues. Especially because they're playing, I believe they have a pretty good matchup coming up here. They play the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. That's a great matchup. So there's, as of this recording, October 1st, we're not sure if Richardson's going to miss the game or not, but Flacco came in with 16 for 26, 168 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was the quarterback 15 on the week, and he didn't even play the whole game. And that's kind of what Flacco does. Like we saw it with the Cleveland Browns. He came in there and he was not afraid to chuck it, and it worked out really well for the wide receivers there. Michael Pittman had been one of the biggest draft busts in all of fantasy football. Flacco gets in there. He sees 9 targets, turned into 6 for 113. We love that. And then Josh Downs, who recently came back from injury, he came in, saw 9 targets, turned into 8 for 82 and a touchdown. So Flacco was in there for, it looks like 80% of the offensive snaps, not even the whole game. And it turned into fantasy production for those guys. We love that. Alec Pierce was only 1 for 9 on 2 targets, and Adonai Mitchell, 3 targets, no catches. But those top 2 guys, we love that. And then in the rushing game, Jonathan Taylor was 21 for 88 and a touchdown. He also added 3 for 20 in the air on 4 targets. He finished as the running back 13 on the week. He did get injured in this game, though. He's dealing with an ankle sprain, I believe it was. Was it high or low? A mild high ankle sprain. So that puts running back Trey Sermon in the mix as someone who, if Jonathan Taylor is out, Trey Sermon will get the start. Probably not a good long-term play because this injury doesn't seem super severe, but if Jonathan Taylor were to miss a game or two, or, you know, JT has missed games. He's had injuries in the past. I believe he's had a lot of ankle injuries, if I'm not mistaken. He's on my dynasty team. I feel like he's always out, but I do have Trey Sermon, thankfully. I don't have Jordan Mason and I have McCaffrey. I would rather have that situation, but I digress. Trey Sermon is going to be a solid start if Jonathan Taylor is out. And then on the other side, Justin Fields had a heck of a game for fantasy. He was the quarterback 1 on the week with 32 points, according to Fantasy Pro scoring. 22 of 34, 312 yards, and 1 touchdown. They just barely lost this game by 3. He also added 10 for 55 on the ground and ran 2 touchdowns in, which is why I was kind of saying, like, earlier in another podcast episode, like, Fields seems like he was not rostered enough. Like, he hadn't had a big game yet, but he has the ability to run, and we saw it here. He ran 2 touchdowns in. Najee Harris was only 13 for 19 on the ground, but kind of salvaged his day a little bit. 3 for 54 on 6 targets through the air. And then Cordarrelle Patterson, I picked him up in my Dynasty League just because I had Jaylen Warren, and with Jaylen Warren out for this game, Patterson slotted in as the wide receiver 2, or the running back 2. And we know that Arthur Smith loves Cordarrelle Patterson, and he was 6 for 43 on the ground, and he also was 2 for 19 through the air on 2 targets. He did get hurt in this game though, and he ended up only playing 9 snaps. So is that true? 9 snaps. Hold on. Is that real? I'm looking at Pro Football Reference. It says 9 snaps. And then his box score was 6 carries, 2 receptions. So does that mean that he touched the ball on 8 of 9 snaps? Or is that a typo? That's crazy. Holy moly. He was on his way to a big game. Wow. But Najee Harris, he saw 69% of the snaps. Very nice. So yeah, we just got to see like who's in, who's out. Whoever the number 2 running back there is going to have value. It's a bummer that Patterson got hurt, but George Pickens had himself a solid game here. 7 for 113 yards on 11 targets. He was the wide receiver. George Pickens was the wide receiver 25, 12.8 points. Still a solid game. It's not, doesn't blow your mind, but 7 for 113 is very good. And then Pat Freiermuth, he's been pretty solid. I have him in my Guillotine League, and he's been getting me along, luckily. 5 for 57 and a touchdown. He hadn't had a touchdown yet, so that was good. And he did see 7 targets. Was a tight end 3 on the week, 14.2 points. Behind Tucker Kraft for the Packers, who we mentioned, and Taysom Hill, who got injured. So, he's one of those late round draft picks where you could do a lot worse, especially with how bad the rest of the tight ends are playing. But other than Pickens and Freiermuth, no one really did anything in the passing game. So we can move on there. Broncos and Jets. This game was really ugly. I don't want to spend too much time on this one. So the Broncos got the win on the road over the New York Jets. Both teams are now 2-2. The final score was Broncos 10, Jets 9. Very disgusting game. I'm not able to watch all the games at once. I do have NFL Red Zone, so it just kind of, pops around as plays happen. This game was not being shown too much, probably because there were not a lot of plays happening. Bo Nix, 12 for 25, 60 yards total. 1 touchdown. He added, 5 for 3 on the ground, so pretty much nothing. Tyler Bidet, who I thought would be more involved on the ground, he only saw 1 carry, and he left this game early with injury. But Javonte Williams actually had a solid game finally. I'm sure no one was starting him, and if you did, it was almost kind of weird that you did that. But he had 9 points in half PPR, 16 of 77, or 16 for 77. Added 2 catches for 3 yards on 3 targets. Jaleel McLaughlin was 9 for 46 on the ground, 1 catch for 0 yards. So it's still gross. I still don't like it, but you like to see those guys have a little juice here, and Javonte to have a somewhat decent game because he looked dreadful. Cortland Sutton, I played Jawan Jennings over him even with Debo back in my Dynasty League, and with the injuries I had there. And Sutton, it looked like the right play. He only had 3 for 60, but he caught a touchdown. So that was a tough matchup with Sauce Gardner at cornerback there. But he saw 9 targets, and it turned into 3 for 60 and a touchdown. So I think Cortland Sutton in the right matchup is a solid streaming option, especially as bye weeks come and injuries keep happening. So someone to monitor. After that, the leading receiver, he had 60 yards. Wait a minute. Okay, so Bo Nix threw for 60 yards. Cortland Sutton received for 60 yards. The other players on the team receiving totals were 3 yards, -2, and -4. So +6, -6. Everyone else that caught a pass in this game netted 0 yards combined. And Courtland Sutton was the only guy to have more than 3 receiving yards. So Courtland Sutton's receiving total matched Bo Nix's passing total. That's insane. Yeah, Michael Burton, for what it's worth, 1 for 3. Javonte Williams, 2 for 3. Josh Reynolds did not catch a pass on 2 targets. Little Jordan Humphrey did not catch a pass. Greg Dulcich did not catch a pass. Troy Franklin caught 2 passes on 4 targets for -2 yards, and Tyler Bidet 2 for -4 on 2 targets. Let's move on. Aaron Rodgers, 24 of 42, 225 yards. Not great. No touchdowns, no picks. 5 for 26 on the ground. Breece Hall had a massively disappointing game. He was 10 carries for 4 yards on the ground, and he did not salvage his day really with passing game production. He saw 5 targets, which is solid, but only turned into 214. Obviously, don't overreact. You're going to play him each and every week, but let's just hope this was a blip and nothing like this ever happens again for Breece. Well, I don't have him in any leagues, so I don't really care, but Braylon Allen, 8 for 34, the rookie. It's a bit of a committee there. He is involved. 8 for 34 on the ground, 1 for 12 through the air. Mike Williams, someone to keep an eye on here as the season progresses. You know, he started the year as a decoy coming off that ACL injury, but he has been getting more and more involved, and I believe this was his best game of the year. 5 targets turned into 4 for 67, especially with Garrett Wilson usually absorbing that top coverage. Mike Williams is going to have his weeks. I hope he does because I have him in Dynasty. He played 58% of the snaps, so I'm sure that's only going to go up and up and up. Alan Lazard had an okay game, I guess, if you were streaming him. 8 targets, 5 for 58. And then Garrett Wilson, very disappointing performance. But in my preview, I warned you guys that this could be kind of a disappointing game just because he was matched up with superstar cornerback Patrick Surtain. He had 8 targets, only turned into 5 for 41, and he also had a fumble. So he was single digits for fantasy, low single digits. Looks like he had 4.6 points in half PPR, according to Fantasy Pro scoring. So not great. Tyler Conklin, one of my tight end starts of the week as a deep streamer, saw 8 targets, which is great, but only turned into 4 for 17. And yeah, it was just a really gross game. But let's move past that. We're gonna move on to a much more exciting game. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home versus the Philadelphia Eagles. The Bucs get the win, 33-16. The Bucs are now 3-1. The Eagles are 2-2. And this wasn't super surprising just because, you know, the Eagles were without AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. So I made Dallas Goedert a start of the week, who we'll talk about later at tight end. But we'll start with the Bucs because they won. Baker Mayfield is looking really good this year. I believe he had like 1 down game, but other than that, he's been amazing. 30 for 47, 347 yards, 2 touchdowns, added 4 for 10 and a touchdown on the ground, quarterback 3 on the week. Mike Evans had a bounce back game. I made him and Chris Godwin starts of the week. I told you not to bench Mike Evans just because, you know, he'll have a down game occasionally. And one of those down games, he had a couple bad games in a row. One was against Surtain, who's been shutting down everyone. We just talked about how he shut down Garrett Wilson. He shut down Mike Evans. This was a much better matchup. He saw 14 targets, which is incredible. And it turned into 8 for 94 and a touchdown. So what I love about this offense is that these wide receiver targets are very consolidated. You know, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are going to get their targets. And I was really hopeful for the Chris Godwin career resurgence here after a down year last year. And it's looking like it's happening. Mike Evans, wide receiver 6 on the week with 19.4 points, 8 for 94 and a touchdown. Godwin didn't have a big blow up game, but even in like if he's going to have a down game like this, where he saw 9 targets and it turned into 6 for 69, very nice. You know, you'll take that from a guy like Godwin. He's not going to be a week winner every single week, but even if his bad games are getting you like 70 yards and 5, 6, 7 receptions, and he's seeing 9 or double-digit targets, like that's really, really solid for where you drafted him. And then in the rushing game, Bucky Irving and Rashad White, get this. All right, you ready for this? Both of them, 10 carries, 49 yards. The only difference is Bucky Irving did run in a touchdown. In the passing game, Rashad White saw 3 targets, turned into 2 for 35. Bucky Irving saw 2 targets, turned into 1 for 6. In terms of snap percentages, let me pull those up here. So Rashad White was 58% of the snaps. Bucky Irving was 42%. So that split is getting closer and closer. This seems to be turning into a real committee, and that could be ugly. That could turn ugly if it remains 50-50. You know, just by nature of the fact that Bucky Irving is kind of gaining ground on Rashad White, it seems like he's kind of gaining momentum where maybe at some point he overtakes the lead back role. There's been a lot of speculation that for a long time because Rashad White has had his inefficiencies on the ground. Granted, he's a great pass catcher, but Bucky Irving is making noise and someone that should be picked up in most leagues, in all leagues, really, because he's going to have a role. And if one of these guys goes down, the other one becomes even better. Other than that, Cade Otton actually had a solid game at tight end. He started really poor this season, but he's been all right lately. He was a tight end 11 on the week. Saw 9 targets, turned into 6 for 52. Last week, he saw 8 targets, turned into 7 for 47. So before that, weeks 1 and 2, he had 5 yards combined. 5 yards, 0 yards. Since then, 47 yards, 52 yards. Saw 8 and 9 targets. So someone that's worth entering that streaming category, it looks like. And then Sterling Shepard, remember him? 5 targets, turned into 3 for 51. Very cool. And yeah, Trey Palmer, 3 for 26 for those deep leaguers out there. And then Jalen Hurts, you know, you were probably playing him if you drafted him, but he was without his top weapons, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So to finish as the quarterback 13 on the week, 16.3 points. Honestly, I think we should be happy with that. 18 for 30, 158 yards, 1 passing touchdown, only 8 for 20 on the ground, but he did run in a touchdown as well. Surprised he didn't run it a little bit more, honestly, with the lack of weapons. But Saquon Barkley, only 10 carries in this game. In a game where you're without all your weapons. Like, I know, you know, the Buccaneers scored 14 points in the first quarter. It was 14-0, but I feel like you got to get Saquon more involved. And even if it's in the passing game, he only had 4 targets, turned into 2 for 32. So definitely disappointing for Saquon, but he's a guy that you're playing each and every week. And even in a bad week, he was 12.6 points, the running back 20. Don't overreact. Every player has these weeks for the most part. So I'm sure that they'll get him more involved moving forward. And then Dallas Goedert, my tight end start of the week, 8 targets, turned into 7 for 62. Very, very nice performance. He was a tight end 6 on the week. He didn't get in the end zone. He had 9.7 points, but you'll definitely take that. I played him over Kyle Pitts, for example, so very glad I did that. Other than that, so Goddard had 7 catches, 7 for 62. Saquon was 2 for 32. After that, Grant Calcaterra, 1 for 26. Paris Campbell, 4 for 17 and a touchdown. Jahan Dotson, 2 for 11. John Ross, 1 for 6. Jack Stoll, 1 for 4. I mean, I haven't heard a lot of those guys, and I'm pretty tapped into the NFL. So not AJ Brown, please come back. Devontae Smith, please come back. We need you guys desperately. We're gonna move on to a game that, you know, a few weeks ago when Bryce Young was a starter, probably would not have been that exciting, but with Andy Dalton in there, the games are all right. Carolina Panthers hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals get their first win of the season. They're now 1-3. The Panthers are also 1-3. The Bengals won 34-24. Little revenge game for Andy Dalton. We'll start with the Bengals though, because they won. Joe Burrow. He was a solid start this week based on the matchup. He was a quarterback 10, 17.3 points according to Fantasy Pro scoring. 22 of 31, 232, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, 10 rushing yards on 1 carry. You were probably hoping for more, but you'll take it, you know. Not bad. Quarterback 10 on the week. And then important development here. Red alert. Listen up. Zach Moss and Chase Brown each had 15 carries. So it kind of seemed like, you know, maybe Zach Moss was kind of stealing the backfield, but Chase Brown had himself a huge performance here. So let's start with the snap percentage here. So Zach Moss was 60%. It keeps refreshing every time I read one of them. Zach Moss, 60%. Chase Brown, 40%. So that split was still in Zach Moss's favor. But Brown is someone that should be probably picked up if he isn't already. I think he's rostered in most leagues, but he definitely has some juice, and he finished as the running back 5 on the week. 15 carries, 80 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. It looks like he didn't. No, let's see. Oh, he had 3 targets, 2 for 12 through the air. And then Zach Moss, same number of carries, 15. Only turned into 51 yards though. He did add 4 for 27 through the air, and he caught a touchdown. So he salvaged his week with that receiving touchdown. Running back 17 on the week, 15.8 points. Look, man, if this is going to be a true committee, you know, I was really into Zach Moss when he was like the clear lead back, but if this is an actual committee, I'm a little worried about both of these guys. I think they're going to cannibalize each other a little bit. So it's 1 week, but if we want to project that this trend continues, it might make sense to maybe sell high on Zach Moss right now. He did catch the receiving touchdown. He did still lead the split. I'm not saying get rid of him for nothing, because I do think he will have relevant weeks as this offense continues to get going, because it started slow like usual. The Bengals do, but it's been picking up. But if you can get like really good value for him, for someone that you know has a more secure role, it wouldn't be a bad thing. Or maybe trade, you know, Zach Moss plus something for, you know, maybe like a running back who hasn't really been lighting it up, but you know is a better fantasy asset than Zach Moss. Jamar Chase saw 6 targets, only caught 3 passes, but he's Jamar Chase, so that's all he needed. Turned into 3 for 85 and a touchdown. And then T. Higgins, I really liked him as a start this week. He saw 10 targets, turned into 6 for 60. And let's see, did he have some other production? I'm seeing he had 16 fantasy points. How did that happen? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm looking at Jamar Chase. I was so confused. I'm like, did Higgins like throw a touchdown? What's going on? So let me restart there. Jamar Chase, 3 for 85 and a touchdown. Wide receiver 14 on the week with 16 points. And then T. Higgins, who I liked as a start. The metrics were really good. 10 targets, 6 for 60. You know, that was a good play. That shows that he's involved. He led the team in targets. Only 9 points in half PPR, but that usage is really encouraging. So I would keep playing him, especially in the right matchups. Oshivas took a clear back seat here. Only 1 target. Caught it for 29 yards. So Higgins is back, and he's the clear 2, it looks like. Snap percentage wise, Jamar Chase was 79. Oshivas was actually second with 76%. And then Higgins was third with 64. So Oshivas played 8 more snaps than Higgins did. I wouldn't read too much into that. I believe, if I remember correctly, last week Higgins played like a ton of snaps, like almost all of them. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. And then on the other side, Andy Dalton, 25 for 40, or 25 of 40, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Yeah, he's entering that streaming category. He was a quarterback 11 on the week. So 16.7 points in Fantasy Pro scoring. Chuba Hubbard looking like a fantastic play with this offense clicking. This is what I talked about before the season. I'm like, I feel like Chuba Hubbard is a great 0 running back target, but that offense was so bad. No one could do anything, but it's been great since Andy Dalton has been there. I really hope they keep starting him. Chuba Hubbard, running back 7 on the week, 20.1 points, 18 for 104 and a touchdown on the ground. 4 targets, 4 for 17 through the air. Miles Sanders saw 6 carries here, turned into 32 yards. He also saw 4 targets, turned into 3 for 14. And then Deontay Johnson, another week with Andy Dalton, another great performance. He saw 13 targets, turned into 7 for 83 and a touchdown. So when you combine Andy Dalton being a competent quarterback, willing to throw the ball, able to get the ball to his weapons, and Adam Thielen being on IR with that hamstring injury last week, he got injured. Deontay Johnson is looking like a really, really solid play. Wide receiver 9 on the week with 17.8 points. And then Xavier Legette, I mentioned his name. I hope you guys were subscribed and listening, because I mentioned Xavier Legette, name to monitor. Quarterback upgrade. Rookie's getting more and more experience. Xavier Legette is a rookie. No Adam Thielen. He's worth taking a look at. And you know, I heard someone saying like he didn't play the best game NFL eye test wise, but box score fantasy wise, he finished 10 targets, Caught 6 for 66 and a touchdown. Wide receiver 13 on the week, 16.6 points in half PPR. So if that's the numbers that he's going to put up when he doesn't look good, I'm excited to see what he does when he does look good. And he's a rookie, so he should get better. So I advised people to pick him up. I don't think I actually had the roster space to pick him up anywhere, though, just because I had so many injuries. I wish I had, because I think he's going to be relevant moving forward. Jonathan Mingo, not really relevant at this point. 5 targets, 3 for 24. That's pretty much all there is to say there. Let's move on to the next matchup. We're chugging along here. Let's go Houston Texans at home versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Houston gets the win 24-20. Texans are 3-1. Jags are 0-4. It was a competitive game at the end there, but Houston held off. They scored in the fourth quarter to take the lead. CJ Stroud was one of my starts of the week at quarterback, and he was very good. Quarterback 7 on the week, 23.5 points in Fantasy Pro scoring, 27-40, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 for 17 on the ground. Look, Stroud is an amazing talent, but he's a pocket passer. He doesn't run. And at this point, you're probably starting him most weeks, but if you have like a Jaden Daniels, I would probably be playing Jaden Daniels most week if you took both of them. But CJ Stroud is a guy who I really want to play in the right matchup, or at least I want to have high expectations in the right matchup, and this was one of those spots against Jacksonville. So start of the week and great performance. Speaking of expectations, Cam Akers did not meet those. 13 for 53 on the ground, got the start with Dameon Pierce and Joe Mixon out. Saw 13 carries, just didn't do enough with him, and looks like he didn't have a target even. So no catches, 13 carries for 53 yards. Dare Agumbawale was actually the guy who stole the show. He was 4 for 47 through the air, and he caught a receiving touchdown as well. And he had 4 targets, it looks like, and then only 2 for 7 on the ground. He's more of a pass catching back, but he was a running back 19 on the week with 13.4 points. And then in the receiver game, Nico Collins might be the best receiver in fantasy right now. He was the wide receiver 1 on the week, 27.1 points. He saw 15 targets, caught 12 passes for 151 yards and 1 touchdown. He's just unbelievable right now. And then start of the week, Stephon Diggs. Really great performance. No Tank Dell in this game, so I thought that would lead to consolidated targets. Plus, it was a really good matchup. He saw 9 targets in this one, which honestly, I'm almost surprised it wasn't higher. But he was 5 for 69 through the air on those 9 targets. And they also drew up a little trick play where it looked like he was going to throw the ball near the goal line, but he ended up just running it in. So he had 1 carry for 6 yards and a touchdown. So he finished as the wide receiver 14 on the week with 16 points in half PPR. So we love that. And then Dalton Schultz had himself an all right performance. I mean, it was bad, but at this point in this tight end landscape, you'll take it. 3 for 34 on 5 targets. He was literally the tight end 15 on the... Oh, sorry, that was Dalton Kincaid. Okay, he was the tight end 19 on the week, so not far behind, so it doesn't take much. On the other side of the ball, Trevor Lawrence continues to look bad. 18 of 33, 169 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Just not completing enough passes. I don't know if it's him or the coaching or the weapons. I don't know. And then it's affecting, Travis Etienne, who, with this offense, not able to really do a ton. Good running backs are usually tied to good offenses for fantasy. So running back 13 on the week, 6.5 points, 11 for 50 on the ground, 1 for 10 through the air on 2 targets. Tank Bigsby actually led the team in rushing with 7 for 90 on the ground. He's nothing more than a handcuff running back at this point. He had 9 points, was the running back 30 on the week. But if Etienne were to go down, Bigsby would be very relevant, and it is a bit of a committee, but I'm not playing Bigsby just straight up at this point. Brian Thomas Jr., though, the rookie wide receiver, he's looking really good. Hopefully you took some late shots on him. I think I have him in 1 league out of my 5 leagues. 6 for 86 and a touchdown, 9 targets, and he just looks like a beast out there. Wide receiver 7 on the week with 18.9 points. He also had a 1 for 13 on the ground. And then Christian Kirk, thank goodness they're using him. I was really confused. His early season usage was very strange, but the last 2 weeks he's been solid. He saw 12 targets here, 7 for 61 and a touchdown. Wide receiver 16 on the week, especially with Evan Ingram missing the last few games. it makes sense that he would be seeing, you know, a handful of targets because he's kind of like a close to the line of scrimmage type of receiver, sort of like Evan Ingram. So especially without Ingram there, I would assume Kurt should be involved, and he has been the last couple weeks here. So definitely a playable asset. And now that I said that, he'll bust. But after that, really nothing. You know, Gabe Davis did a lot of cardio. 5 targets, caught 1 for -2, and Brenton Strange filling in for Evan Ingram was 3 for 19 through the air on 3 targets. We're gonna move on. We only have a few games left here. Commanders, Cardinals. Commanders whooped the Cardinals in Arizona, 42-14. The Commanders are 3-1. The Cardinals are 1-3. Jaden Daniels might be the best quarterback to own in fantasy. Like, it's Jalen Hurts. It's when he gets his weapons back. Josh Allen. I mean, Jaden Daniels is right up there. Like, he's probably like the number 3 or 4 quarterback right now that you want. 26 for 30, 200. That was right. He only had 4 incompletions, 233 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Also added 8 for 47 and a touchdown. He was the running back, quarterback 5 on the week. I didn't say that to be disrespectful. He's a good passer, 26 for 30. But yeah, he was a quarterback 5 on the week. Brian Robinson, he was one of my starts of the week. Jaden Daniels was too, but at this point, it's kind of a cheat code to make him a start of the week because you should be starting him every week. Brian Robinson was 21 for 101 and a touchdown. No Austin Eckler there, so he saw a ton of work. 3 for 12 through the air on 3 targets. And then, you know, Brian Robinson had himself a heck of a game. He was the running back 10 on the week with 18.8 points in half PPR. All that, even with Jeremy McNichols, of all people, getting in there and stealing a lot of fantasy production. McNichols was 8 for 68 on the ground and 2 rushing touchdowns. Very annoying. He also caught 1 pass for 6 yards. He was the running back 8 on the week with 19.9. So he was a 1.1 points better than Brian Robinson. So I liked my start of the week call, but it could have been even better. The leading receiver for Washington was actually Zacchaeus. He saw 6 targets, caught all of them for 85 yards. Terry McLaurin had another week of good production, so we like that. 10 targets, 7 for 52, and a touchdown. He has had a touchdown each of the last couple weeks here. So, you know, if he doesn't catch the touchdown, he might be a little disappointed unless he gets like more yardage, you know, between the 20s type deal. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, just the nature of touchdowns, he's not going to catch one every week. But you do like the 10 targets, and you like that Jaden Daniels is looking good, and he is able to get the ball in the end zone if needed, which is usually the issue with rookie quarterbacks. They can't throw touchdowns like a veteran can. So we like that. And then after that, you know, Noah Brown, 3 for 26, was the next leading receiver. Luke McCaffrey, 1 for 17. So, and then at tight end, Zach Ertz was 3 for 22 on 3 targets. And then for the Cardinals, very disappointing game. I made Kyler Murray a start of the week, and he definitely disappointed. This whole offense they haven't quite lived up to the expectations that I think a lot of us had, but 16 for 22, 142 yards and 1 touchdown. He added 1 carry for 3 yards on the ground. Not what we wanted. Quarterback 24 on the week, especially in the game where they were getting destroyed. You would have at least hoped for some garbage time. If he could have even, you know, gotten like to 15 points with like a garbage time touchdown drive, you know, like you're like, okay. But yeah, 10 points according to Fantasy Pros. I think their format is a little different than what most people use, but on the bright side, James Conner was one of my running back starts of the week. I had 3 of them. I usually try to do about 3 for each position. And he was a running back 14 on the week, so very happy with that. He played the Lions last week. I told you, don't worry, this is a much better matchup than Detroit's brutal run defense, which is interesting because the Seahawks just dominated on the ground, which we'll talk about very shortly. But James Conner bounced back big time, 18 for 104 and a touchdown. Only caught 1 for 9 through the air in a game where they were losing, so could have been even better. Trey Benson got some work in this one, 9 for 50 on the ground. He was the next leading rusher in terms of carries and yardage. DeMarcado was 4 for 24. DeMarcado caught 1 pass for 0 yards. No Trey McBride in this game also. I can't remember if I mentioned this, but Austin Eckler was out for Washington. I think I said that, but so there were some injuries that kind of had fantasy implications on both sides. But Marvin Harrison Jr. was 5 for 45 and a touchdown in this game on 6 targets. I believe he caught that touchdown pretty early, and the whole offense is kind of, didn't do much after that, but 13 points, wide receiver 23 on the week. You'll take that. Michael Wilson had the most targets on the team, 7, turned into 3 for 38. Greg Dortch caught all 4 of his targets for 38 yards. And then Elijah Higgins at tight end, filling in for McBride, 2 for 12. So let's get McBride healthy. He was dealing with a concussion. Hopefully he is good to go. 49ers at home absolutely destroyed the Patriots 30-13. Not surprising. 49ers are 2-2. Patriots are 1-3. Brock Purdy, 15 for 27, 288 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 5 for 11 on the ground. Quarterback 14 on the week. And then Jordan Mason continues to be an auto start with Christian McCaffrey out. 24 for 123 yards and a touchdown. I didn't make him a start of the week because at this point, I just felt like he's just an auto start. Like, you're starting him no matter what. The offense is great, and he's been playing super amazing. So you're playing him in every matchup, even if they were playing Detroit. Like, I'm not benching Jordan Mason. 24 for 123 and a touchdown on the ground, 2 for 37 through the air on 3 targets. He was a running back 4 on the week with 23 points. Jawan Jennings led the team in receiving yards again, even with Deebo Samuel back and George Kittle back. He had 88 yards, led the team in targets too with 6, turned into 3 for 88. So no player other than Kittle had more than 3 receptions. So no wide receiver. So Jennings was 3 for 88 on 6 targets. Deebo Samuel was 3 for 58 on 5 targets. He also added 2 for 14 on the ground. First game back from injury. Brandon Ayuk was a little disappointing. I kind of expected that with Christian Gonzalez there at cornerback. He was 2 for 48 through the air on 5 targets. And then George Kittle came back from injury, saw 4 targets, caught all 4 of them for 45 yards and a touchdown. Did I say 4 enough in that sentence? Holy cow. So yeah, there's a lot of pass catchers here. You're playing Ayuk most weeks. You're playing Deebo most weeks. I mean, I benched Deebo this week for Jaden Reed, so maybe not, but most weeks these guys are going to be solid. It might kind of ping pong about who you want each week. But Jordan Mason is really the guy you want. George Kittle was a tight end 4 on the week with 12.5 points. And obviously they didn't really need to force the issue. They won 30-13. Jacoby Brissett, 19 of 32, 168 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Not lighting it up. Oh, I should also mention for the 49ers, Garendo, the guy Isaac Garendo, who the 49ers drafted, that prompted me to say, oh, Jordan Mason is the running back 3 on his own team, maybe even the running back 4 with them drafting Garendo. I can cut Jordan Mason in Dynasty. Garendo saw 1 carry for 0 yards and he fumbled it. I hate that guy. And I hate myself for dropping Jordan Mason. The guy that has Jordan Mason, he offered me a trade. He wanted me to give him Drake London and a 1st-round pick for Jordan Mason and like a 4th. I'm like, no? How about just a 1st? No, dude. Okay. Anyways, I digress. Ramondre Stevenson, 13 for 43 on the ground, 4 for 19 through the air, 5 targets. He's looking a little rough right now. But I think, I wouldn't be dropping him. It's a tough matchup, but he's fumbled in every game this year. That's the thing that I'm really worried about. They just gave him a big contract, but against the Jets and the 49ers, the last 2 weeks, it's been rough. I think better days are ahead, but if he keeps fumbling, I mean, he might lose touches to Antonio Gibson, who ironically, his career was kind of derailed due to fumbles. But speaking of Antonio Gibson, he was 6 for 12 on the ground, but he added 3 for 67 through the air on 4 targets, running back 27 on the week with 9.4 points. He was the team's leading receiver in terms of yardage. I mean, I can tell you who the other receivers were, but none of them are relevant. Jalen Polk, 3 for 30, 7 targets. He's the rookie, so I guess the hope with him is that Drake May gets in there and they have a connection. Austin Hooper caught a touchdown on 2 for 13. Demario Douglas, after seeing a bunch of targets last week, only saw 3, caught them all for only 13 yards. Hunter Henry, 2 for 12 on 3 targets. KJ Osborne continues to be a non-factor. Saw 5 targets, caught 1 of them for 3 yards. Kayshon Boutte got in there, caught 1 for 11. It's just really gross. You're not playing any receivers there right now. It's pretty much you're waiting and seeing with Polk, and you're reluctantly starting Ramondre Stevenson unless it's a good matchup. Next game, Las Vegas Raiders at home versus the Cleveland Browns. Get the win 20-16. No Devontae Adams at wide receiver. No Max Crosby on defense, defensive end. I'm not sure if Adams is actually dealing with an injury or if they're just trying to trade him. I've heard reports that they're open to trading him for the right offer, but I believe he's listed as week to week. So who knows what's really going on. But Gardner Minshew, 14 for 24, 130 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. You're not starting him. And then Zamir White saw 17 carries, only turned into 50 yards. Didn't catch his one target. Alexander Madison outrushed Zamir White. So Zamir White had 17 carries. Alexander Madison had 5 carries. And Alexander Madison outrushed Zamir White. He was 5 for 60. They each had one target. Didn't catch him. Very gross situation. But I think Zamir White might, I don't want either of these guys. But I think Alexander Madison could really start infringing on the Zamir White hope, because Zamir White played 59% of snaps as it refreshes when I look at it for some reason. And Madison was 36, but I think, and the coach even said Madison has been playing well and should be seeing more touches. And then with no Devontae Adams there, Jacoby Myers was kind of the number 2 receiver there. So he saw 10 targets, only turned into 5 for 49, but you do like that target volume. Could be a streamer moving forward, especially while Adams is out. And then Trey Tucker, I traded him away in Dynasty to a rebuilding team because I wanted some win now assets. But he saw 6 targets, turned into 5 for 41, and he ran in a 3-yard touchdown. So he had a nice little end of the year last year. Not a lot of people talk about him, but especially with Devontae Adams out, he's going to have a role. I mean, 6 targets, and he has big playability. He can stretch the field. Brock Bowers was disappointing. 2 for 19 on 3 targets. 1 for 12 on the ground, it looks like. I don't know if that was an actual run or if it was just like a backwards pass, but yeah, very gross. And then for the Browns, Deshaun Watson, 24 of 32, 176 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 8 for 32 on the ground. Jerome Ford led the rushing attack, 10 for 58 on the ground compared to Deontay Foreman's 4 for 2 on the ground. Ford did rip off a 35-yard run. He also added 7 for 27 on the ground. So you do love this. He saw 7 targets, caught them all. Only 27 yards, but you do love the 7 targets there. Deontay Foreman caught 1 for 5 on 1 target. Then Jerry Jeudy was the leading receiver, 6 for 72 on 9 targets. And then Amari Cooper, I'm telling you, dude, 8 targets, 4 for 35. He has had multiple big drops this year. He had a bad drop in this game as well, I believe. And he had was it like an 80, 70-yard touchdown, something crazy, called back due to a holding penalty that really probably shouldn't have been called. Like, I lost the matchup by 5 points with Amari Cooper in my lineup, and that touchdown being called back hurt. I think Amari Cooper is a borderline buy low because I don't think he's going to keep dropping passes, and he just had an 80-yard touchdown called back. I think his ceiling is a little capped with Deshaun Watson there at quarterback, but I think if there's someone that's like really out on Amari Cooper, like if you can give like Josh Downs for him or something, type thing, that's a smash. Or if you can do like, Zach Moss and like some other kind of middling player for Amari Cooper. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I think Amari Cooper could be a buy low depending on how much his manager actually is reading into what's happening, because the box score hasn't been great, but he's been really, really close to some big plays. And like the drops are on him. Like I get that. They are his fault. But it's also like, I don't think Amari Cooper's going to keep dropping passes. Like that's not who he is. Chiefs on the road against the Chargers. Chiefs win 17-10. Chiefs are 4-0. Chargers are 2-2. Mahomes is not an every week starter at this point. Especially with losing Rashee Rice in this game, we'll talk about in a sec, but Mahomes was 19 for 29, 245 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, added 12 rushing yards. Carson Steele in the running game did get the start, but he fumbled, and then Kareem Hunt came in and was the guy. 14 for 69 on the ground for Kareem Hunt. Important to note, He also added 2 for 16 on 3 targets. But important to note is that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to return soon, and this running back room is going to be even more messy. So if I had to pick one, it's Kareem Hunt, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire could make that even messier. Samaje Perine was on the field. He saw 5 for 14 on the ground. He had a rushing touchdown. Surprisingly, no passing game involvement. That's kind of his thing, but you obviously started Rashee Rice. Patrick Mahomes threw an interception. He went for the tackle, dove into Rashee Rice's knee. We're still not sure what the report is, but a lot of people are thinking torn ACL. The best case scenario, it's probably a hyperextension and he's not out for the year. But if it's looking like an ACL tear or something bad, he's going to miss the season. And, he's got that suspension that could be coming next year. So it could be a while before we see Rashee Rice play meaningful football. Just football at all, really. But Travis Kelce, I played him in a few DFS lineups because I thought people would be off of him because he's been really bad. Let's just tell it like it is. He's been really bad for fantasy, but I kind of liked him in this spot here. And 9 targets turned into 7 for 89 through the air. And he was a tight end 5 on the week with 12.4 points. I do think he's lost a step. I don't think it's crazy to say that, but especially with Rashee Rice gone, it was, he's going to be involved. I think he's going to have to be involved. And it was just good to see him have like some sort of pulse of a game. Almost 89 receiving yards. Not many tight ends are doing that. So, and then Xavier Worthy, 4 targets, turned into 3 for 73 and a touchdown. He just needs to get more involved. And yeah, after that, it's gross. Nothing really to speak of. And then Justin Herbert, 16 of 27, 179 yards, 1 touchdown. Not someone you're playing most weeks, just with them wanting to run the ball. This is another tough matchup for J.K. Dobbins. So I said last week when they played the Steelers, Dobbins is still a good fantasy asset. Tough matchup against the Steelers. It could be rough against the Chiefs, but once the schedule lightens up, Dobbins is going to be good and could be a buy low candidate. So he still led the team in carries, 14 carries, only 32 yards. But in the right matchup, I think he'll be a better play. Gus Edwards was 6 for 19 on the ground. And then in the receiving game, Ladd McConkey, 5 for 67 and a touchdown on 7 targets. And then Josh Palmer was 3 for 36 on 4 targets. Quentin Johnson came back down to earth, no touchdowns, had 5 targets, only turned into 1 for 9. And yeah, let's just get away from those games. I'm getting grossed out just thinking about it. Crazy game, Sunday Night Football. Baltimore Ravens at home destroyed the Buffalo Bills, 35-10. Ravens are now 2-2 after, they scored 35 points on the Bills. The Bills looked really good, and the Ravens had a rough start, but to get a 35-10 win over the Bills is crazy. But yeah, the Ravens are 2-2. Bills are 3-1. Lamar Jackson, 13 of 18 through the air, 156 yards and 2 touchdowns. He added 6 for 54 and a touchdown on the ground, was the quarterback 6 on the week. And then Derrick Henry, my goodness. I'm glad I traded for him in Dynasty. They say don't trade for aging running backs. Come on. 24 for 199 and 1 touchdown. That's super annoying. He didn't quite get to 200. He also added 3 for 10 and a touchdown through the air. Running back 1 on the week, 34.4 points in half PPR. So Justice Hill was also very involved. He has a role on this team. Not something I want to trust every week, but in case of emergency, you throw him in there. Or if they're in a game script where they're trailing, Justice Hill is going to be involved, which is interesting, though, because they were not trailing in this game. And he saw 6 targets, caught all of them for 78 yards and 1 touchdown. Had 4 carries for 18 yards. He was the running back 11 on the week with 18.6 points. After Justice Hill, leading receiver for the Ravens was Isaiah Likely, 1 for 26 on 2 targets. Rashad Bateman, 1 for 23 on 1 target. You got Derrick Henry with 10 yards on 3 catches. Zay Flowers only 1 for 10 on 2 targets. Nelson Aguilar 2 for 10 on 3 targets. And then Mark Andrews, 1 target, 0 yards. So I'm a little nervous about the pass catching weapons here. I don't know what you do with Mark Andrews. I don't know if I'm starting Tyler Conklin or someone over him, but if you have like a Jake Ferguson, or I don't know if you're able to get Njoku because he's been missing time, or I don't know, like you're probably forced to start Mark Andrews and just hope he gets it going, but that's not how they're winning games right now. And yeah, Derrick Henry stole the show here. So no one else was really needed. Josh Allen on the other side, really disappointing week. 16 for 29, 180 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, 5 for 21 on the ground. Quarterback 28 on the week. I don't know if he's ever had a week that bad. And then James Cook, 9 for 39. Obviously, you can't run the ball a ton when you end up losing by 25 points, but he also wasn't really involved in the passing game. Only one target, caught it for 9 yards, but yeah, he was the running back 45 on the week with 5.3 points. So obviously, down week. I don't think that's going to be the norm. If anyone's freaking out and you can get him cheap, go for it. Khalil Shakir was the leading receiver. He seems like the receiver you probably want there at this point. 4 for 62 on 5 targets. Keon Coleman, he's flashed at times. The rookie, 3 for 51 on 4 targets. He might be relevant, even more relevant as the season goes along. That's kind of what happens with rookies a lot of the time. And then Dalton Kincaid, I'm a little worried about him too. I mean, he saw 7 targets, turned into 5 for 47. But this was a spot where I really thought he'd have a good game because I thought the game would be competitive and they would have to throw the ball. And they just couldn't get the offense going. And, he saw 7 targets. And he was a tight end 15 on the week, 7.2 points. So it could have been worse, but are we going to get like good games from Dalton Kincaid? I mean, I would like to think so, but I just don't know when they're coming. Moving on to the Monday night games. We got 2 night games here, and then we're going to cap off the episode here. So Tennessee Titans on the road in Miami get the win, 31-12. Both teams are 1-3. Very ugly game. Hopefully you watched more of the Seattle and the Detroit game. Tyler Huntley got the start for the Dolphins. Obviously Tua out with injury. Skylar Thompson wasn't the answer. I don't know if Skylar Thompson was ruled out or if they just went with Tyler Huntley. But either way, Mason Rudolph ended up getting the majority of the playing time for the Titans. Will Levis left that game early. I think it was a shoulder injury, I believe. Feared to have AC joint injury, but he 100% is the starter. Okay. So Mason Rudolph got in there, but it was ugly football. Will Levis was 3 of 4 for 25 yards, 1 pick. Mason Rudolph, 19 for 17, 85 yards. Tony Pollard had a good game on the ground. He was 22 for 88 and a touchdown. He also added 2 for 20 through the air. He was the running back. Let's see. So Tony Pollard was the running back, 14 on the week, 17.8 points. So very disappointing week against the Packers the previous week, I believe it was. But that's good to see. And then Tajay Spears saw 15 carries, only turned into 39 yards, but he did run in a touchdown at the very end. Also saw 2 targets and caught them both for 0 yards. So Pollard is still the guy you want. The offense is going to struggle, so it might limit his upside, but Pollard is going to have his weeks. And I'm reading that it looks like Skylar Thompson was the emergency 3rd quarterback, according to RotoWire. So that looks like the answer for that. I don't know why I care that much. I just don't want to spread, quarterback misinformation here, but I think that was the case. And then in the receiving game, it was ugly for the Titans. Hopkins, 2 for 31 on 4 targets. Another bad game from Calvin Ridley. 3 targets, only 1 for 5. He had 1 carry for 10 yards to get you over 1 point. Tyler Boyd, 2 for 31 on 2 targets. So it's ugly. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. We need better quarterback play if there's going to be multiple, targets here that we care about, we're going to need better quarterback play. And I don't know if that's going to happen. But Will Levis, I mean, he flashed last year, and he was willing to chuck it. So I was kind of excited about this offense. I thought he would get the ball down the field, but too many mistakes can't sustain drives. On the other side of the ball, Tyler Huntley got the start, 14 of 22, 96 yards, played the whole game, trailing, didn't even get 100 passing yards. He added 8 for 40 and a touchdown on the ground. Devon Achane was 10 for 15. Jalen Wright got some run in there, 9 for 32. Just with the game being out of hand. Jalen Waddle, 4 for 36 on 6 targets. Tyreek Hill saw 7 targets, turned into 4 for 23 through the air. He added 3 carries for 19 yards on the ground to just try to get him the ball. Nothing was working. Achane, in addition to his abysmal rushing game, added 3 for 14 through the air on 3 targets. So, I don't know, man. I mean, if you bench these guys, I don't blame you without Tua. I don't know, like, is Tua that great of a quarterback where he makes his offense so amazing and then you go down to like a backup level? You know what I mean? Like, and they just can't do anything? Like, it's crazy. I'm not trying to like disrespect Tua, but it's like, is he like that underrated, or are these guys just that bad? You know, like, it's insane. But, you know, I'm not benching Tyreek Hill or Achane for like nobodies, but if I have good options, I'm willing to do it until Tua comes back. And Jalen Waddle, like, I feel like he's probably a bench most weeks, just because if your quarterback can't throw 100 yards, you know, you split up 96 yards between all of you. And like Achane is the type of player where like he's not meant to be like, he was a really great fit with this offense because you had all these other weapons to worry about, and he would get these efficient touches where he could just make big plays and exploit the defense. And now it's like he's just running into a wall like 10 to 15 times. It's just not what we drafted him for. So he looked like one of the steals of the draft, and now it's looking like it's not working out. But hopefully Tua comes back sooner than later. I mean, obviously I want him to be healthy, you know, but because he's had his concussion issues. But yeah, when he comes back, things will be better. And then final game, Detroit Lions at home versus the Seattle Seahawks. Super high scoring game. Detroit Lions do get the win though, 42-29. Both teams are 3-1. Seahawks get their first loss of the year. Jared Goff was 18 of 18, a perfect game. I believe that's the most passes without an incompletion, if I'm not mistaken, to finish a game. Like, to, you know what I mean? 18 of 18, 292 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. And then what's also interesting to know is he caught a touchdown. Jared Goff caught a touchdown. It was a trick play. They handed it to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jared Goff snuck out, dropped it in over the middle or over the top. Jared Goff caught it for a 7-yard touchdown. So, yeah, he was on one of my benches. Justin Fields was in, but also was Dak. I wish I had Goff in there, but I had played Goff. You know, he was at home and in a dome every game before this, and it didn't work out. The Seahawks defense didn't look bad. So I'm like, you know what? I'll go with Dak against the Giants. And it's just so hard to predict sometimes, you know. Sometimes people will comment like, oh, wow, nice call, dummy. But it's like, you just never know. Like, the best quarterbacks, some of the best quarterbacks in the league right now are Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, and Sam Darnold, Andy Dalton. Like, you're going to come to me about not being able to predict everything perfectly? Like, come on now. You know what I mean? And yeah, in the rushing game, Jahmyr Gibbs was 14 for 78, 2 rushing touchdowns. Did he not catch a pass? I'm not seeing anything in the passing game. Interesting. David Montgomery was 12 for 40 and a touchdown. So, and one catch for 40 yards. It was a crazy catch. If you didn't see it, you gotta watch it. It was an insane play. And I just looked up most passes, not most passes in a game. Okay, I think it was the record. It's a Reddit post, so take it with a grain of salt, but set the record for most passing attempts without an incompletion in a single game in NFL history. Jared Goff, 18 for 18. Okay, so we got that out of the way. But yeah, I mean, I've had David Montgomery on a bench in one of my leagues because it's a 10-team league. I have James Cook, James Conner, and Alvin Kamara, and I just haven't been able to start Montgomery. But if you have him, it's like he's going to be a good play. Like, his offense is good. I mean, Gibbs was the running back. Let me pull this up. Gibbs was the running back 9 on the week, and Montgomery was the running back 18 on the week. Quarterback-wise, Jared Goff was a quarterback 4. In the receiving game, Jameson Williams, only 2 catches, but he did have a 70-yard touchdown in there, which kind of, you know, that saved his week. Sorry, I'm dying over here. I don't know what just happened to my body. He was a wide receiver 18 on the week with 2 catches, 15 points. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 10 on the week with 17.8 points, 6 for 45 and a touchdown through the air on 6 targets. Also threw that 7-yard touchdown, which helps your fantasy line. And then Tim Patrick. Forgot about him. He was 2 for 52 through the air on 2 targets. I thought about putting him in a DraftKings lineup, and I was like, nah. And he would have been a good play at that at his value. And then Sam Laporta, 4 targets, 4 for 53. I mean, at this point, we're happy with that, I guess. You know, I mean, not preseason hype wise, but I think that's the most yards he's had all year. He was a tight end 14 on the week, 7.3 points. So yeah, it's not been good for him. So you're gonna keep playing him, but hopefully he gets in the end zone a little bit. I don't have him anywhere because I was not reaching on him, but I know a lot of people wanted to. And then on the other side of the ball, Geno Smith threw the ball 56 times, had 38 completions for 395 yards, just short of 400. Only 1 touchdown, 1 interception, quarterback 8 on the week. He added 5 for 38 on the ground as well, which was cool. But yeah, quarterback 8. But he only had 1 touchdown in large part due to Kenneth Walker coming back from injury. I feel like he was on a lot of benches just with it being a Monday night game, not wanting to wait and see if he was active, maybe not having a good pivot option. It was a brutal matchup against the Lions, who were giving up like 8 points per game, the fewest in the league by quite a bit. Coming back from injury, like 12 for 80 on the ground, 3 touchdowns though. So yeah, Geno's not going to throw a lot of touchdowns when Kenneth Walker is in there as the running back 2 on the week with 31.6 points, running in 3 tutties. He also added 4 for 36 through the air on 5 targets. So he's back. Kenneth Walker, it sucks if you had him on the bench, but the good news is that it looks like you have a really, really good running back on your roster. He didn't get hurt again. He's healthy. So at least you have that. And then snap percentage wise, Charbonnet played 42% of the offensive snaps. And then Kenneth Walker was 59. So you love that. And then that could even go up potentially. And then DK Metcalf, did I make him a start of the week? I think I did. I think I did. I know I liked him. I know I talked about him in the preview as someone I liked, but he saw 12 targets. And yes, he was a start of the week. Yes, he was. Okay. 12 targets turned into 7 for 104 through the air. I believe he got dragged down at the 1, which, in that league where I played Geno over Darnold and Fields, I also had DK Metcalf. So him going down at the 1, I lost out on 10 points between Geno and DK Metcalf. If he would have scored there, it would have been a touchdown for both of them. And then they handed it off to Kenneth Walker. And I was like, dude, come on. I still got the win, but I was like, so annoying. But yeah, Metcalf was great. 7 for 104. You'll love the 12 targets. He was my wide receiver, my guy. Wide receiver 28 on the week, 11.9 points, but a lot of that just comes down to the fact that he didn't catch a touchdown. Like, if he would have extended 1 blade of grass further, 11.9, so he would have been at 12 points with the extra yard, and he would have been at 18 points with the touchdown, which would have put him at wide receiver 9 on the week. So, Tyler Lockett, 5 for 61 on 9 targets. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 8 for 51 on 12 targets. So, both of those guys were, solid streamers. In a game like this where it's super high scoring, all 3 of them can get some production. Most weeks it's going to be, probably Metcalf is the main focus, and then one of the other 2 being relevant, and then probably the other one not doing much. Zach Charbonnet took a clear backup role, 2 for 15 on the ground, 5 for 39 through the air, saw 5 targets. So both backs saw 5 targets. And yeah, Noah Fant at tight end, 2 for 26 through the air. So we got through all the games. The episode was still a little bit longer than I had hoped. But I'm a yapper. I'll get better about it. But yeah, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you are enjoying the podcast. Thank you for listening. I really do appreciate it. Good luck preparing for week 5. Get your waiver claims in. Good luck with that Kansas City Chiefs running back room. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Peace out.